Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. Asuka is now live for Guilty Gear Strive, and I'd figure I'd play around with him a little bit here, give you guys a heads up what he's about, and also some fun other little things. Most important of which, as I'm sure you're noticing right now, is hey, Potemkin's got some new colors. And yes, we finally have new colors in Guilty Gear Strive. That is part of the DLC Asuka patch, and they're free. Well, at least some of them are. And hopefully I'm showing some of them on the screen right now. They look really sharp, really esportsy style with the hot colors. They look really nice. So I guess the first thing to talk about is just Asuka himself. One, before we get into the nitty gritty, his animation is just beautiful. Like just the idol, the cloak with like the stars and the galaxy behind it. It looks so good. And like his animations, his basic stuff, like his basic animations, he uses like a spell book and stuff comes out of the spell book. Like this hand, the swords. I can also whomp you over the friggin' head with it. Just a giant tome with an overhead. Like the animations are all just top class. They're really, really, really good. Also, just when it comes to the normals, not only do they look really fantastic just across the board, his crouch dust, his sweep, gonna give Giovanna some competition because this thing's ridiculous. It has range and a half, let's put it that way. So, that out of the way, let's talk about the showstopper here, because Asuka is... I've been doing this for a long time. Asuka is one of the most ridiculous fighting game characters I've ever seen in my life. It's just absurd. So, you've probably seen bits and pieces of it already. So, he is a Magic the Gathering character, a Yu-Gi-Oh character. He has a deck of cards, and he fights with the deck of cards, and everything he does is random. So you have no say in the spells, other than there's a fixed amount of spells per deck, because he has multiple decks of cards, turns out, and you go from there. You burn your cards, your spells, you draw new cards, and you have to worry about your mana, because just like Magic the Gathering, you need your mana to cast the spells, and we all kind of put it together in one giant beautiful mess. So let's start at the basics. He has 4 spell slots, and they are just bound to your buttons here: punch, kick, slash, heavy slash, right? And they're all just quarter circle forward and appropriate button. So let's go here. So quarter circle forward punch, turns out it's this spell. If I draw a new card, it can be a different spell. If I draw a new card, it can be a different spell. If I draw a new card, it can be a different spell. And just kind of so on and so forth. It's not any one fixed spell. It's just whatever you happen to draw. So quarter circle forward and punch. Quarter circle forward kick is this spell. Slash this spell. And when you know it, I'm out of mana now. This last spell I have here, quarter circle forward and heavy slash, I can't cast it. So I need to get some mana to cast it. And now I can. And as you can see now here, I am completely out of cards. So I can't cast nothing. So I have to draw cards for the slots, and that's quarter circle back, punch, kick, slash, heavy slash. And each one of these will take up just a tiny little bit of mana and refill my spell slots. And once again from here, I have to regain my mana. And once I have enough mana, I can just burn the spells. And spells, you're allowed to burn multiples at once. All you have to do is after you hit quarter circle forward and whatever button you're going to press, just hit forward and the next button. And then you'll cast the next spell in line. So in this scenario here, I'm just going to chain 3 of my spells together. So there we go. Just shot out a heck of a lot of cubes, right? And that is 3 of my spells. And I can chain them just as pretty as you please. Of course, the downside of which is you run out of cards pretty quick. But, you know, when you're just filling the screen with garbage, ideally you knock them down and you should have enough time to redraw more cards. I guess that's the idea. And as mentioned here, you know, all these spells, they take mana to work with. It ain't free. And we actually have multiple ways to rebuild the mana. So down, down, punch just recharges mana normally. However, if we do, say, down, down, and slash, it recharges mana faster, but at the cost of our health. So the mana refill is almost instantaneous, but we will lose part of our health. And as we'll go over later in the video, he doesn't have much health to spare. Conversely, another way you can gain your mana faster is at the cost of your tension gauge. So you'll lose part of your tension, so therefore, you know, lose your ability to do supers, all that kind of stuff, but you'll gain mana faster, and it's a, you know, less precious resource than your health is at the very least. So this stuff is already pretty crazy as it is, right? So you have your spells, we draw more spells, you burn through the cards in your deck. We see we start with 26, all that kind of stuff. Except there's more than one deck. So down, down, heavy slash, he does this little move here, and then you hit another corresponding button, and he'll shift his deck. So the original deck we're on, deck 1, has 22 cards left. Deck number 2 has 30 cards in it currently. Deck number 3 also has 30 cards in it. And each of these decks have different cards in them. So some moves seemingly are shared, like a bunch of the cube spells especially. That seems to be like kind of his general offense. But in the other decks, like, things can get a little wild, like say, stuff like that, right? Other oddball cards from some of these decks are stuff like this, just gigantic slow projectile that absolutely dominates the screen, so he can control a lot of space therein. Just lots of spells, and thankfully, if you're a little confused, because I definitely was at first, his whole spell list is actually in the command list. It's just its own separate tab because there's a lot of spells, as you can see here. And they thankfully also give you the icons, because the icons is going to be something like not only you, the player, are obviously going to have to learn this, but your opponent has to learn all these icons as well. Like if you're playing against Asuka, you need to know all the things they can pull. This isn't going to be just something where you can just random your way past this. You're going to have to know, okay, does he have this kind of cube? What kind of cube is it? Does he have the teleport? Does he have the staff? What does he have? These are match-defining things, and there's a lot of these. Like, no word of a lie, this is a character too complex for me. I could not play this kind of character. I like playing grapplers and characters with super armor, right? This is not my kind of character. I think he's fantastic. I applaud this design. I really do. This is one of the most inventive characters I've ever seen in a fighting game, but it's just absolutely not something I personally could play because I can't manage this stuff. I just want to super armor through your move and grab you. That's where I'm at personally. For anyone who can make this character truly go and truly work, I'll tell you right now, your decision-making process is going to be awesome. Because like things like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic, you have to be decent at decision-making, right? And Guilty Gear, unlike those games, is not a turn-based game. You got a split second to decide which spell am I going to use, when am I going to use it, okay, when's time to draw, like all that kind of stuff. Now, thankfully, certain aspects of the character, like one of his supers here, you can change your deck on the fly and it gives you a little bit of time to think about it. And also, if you happen to be completely empty of cards, it will refill your cards for you. So if you're just like in a bad position, there is at least that. So it gives you time to think. But the amount of decision making you have to make with this character compared to just what average fighting game characters go through in the short amount of time you have to do it is absolutely staggering. So we're going to dip back in the gameplay for a second because there's already some interesting things I've learned about the character. But just to dip out here into the actual story for a moment. Because as you can see here, as the trailer showed, we are playing Asuka R hashtag, right? But there's another Asuka in the game. So say, you know, we're in arcade mode, right? And you can pick a character, we can pick a character, pick whatever fancy colors we want. Asuka, not quite. Because Asuka is not Asuka R hashtag. This is Asuka R Kreutz. And there's only one color you can pick for him. This is the actual Asuka, not the one we play as in Versus. So these are actually two separate and distinct characters. And just to point out, as we can see here, now we're back in training mode. When we're this color with Asuka in training mode, we're Asuka R hashtag again. So the true, honest, real Asuka is only playable in story mode. Otherwise, we're playing the clone slash dummy slash simulacrum, whatever you want to call it. We're playing the clone version. So I think that's just a really fun and interesting distinction that they actually go this far out of their way to make sure one is the real one and one is not the real one. It's just purely fluff, right? It doesn't affect the gameplay, but I live for the fluff in fighting games. This is the really interesting stuff. So go out and try arcade mode with Asuka and see whatever story bits you can get. Oh, and quick addition here while I'm editing. So I found this out after the fact. While you're in training mode, when you select Asuka as your character, so, you know, you can pick your colors left and right, but if you hit up or down, it actually changes his name. So that's two characters for the price of one. That's a pretty sick DLC deal, I guess, right? This makes no actual change on anything, but they let you play between the clone and the real deal. So there you go. Pretty fun stuff. So now back to the game here. Asuka, one of the things that confused me in the original trailer was the blue shield around his health. And that's basically a damage shield slash barrier slash protection. So when this barrier is live, Asuka, he's doing okay. He can take a hit, right? Even Potemkin Buster doesn't exactly break him in half. He's doing all right for himself. But the problem is once he runs out of mana. So every time Asuka gets hit, he takes damage to his mana. And obviously he gets hurt. Like, you know, it ain't easy being Asuka. He gets hurt. But the problem is once there's no more mana left, that shield breaks. And once that shield's broken, the damage he takes is extreme, to say the least. So this is definitely a major penalty. Not only are you losing that mana every time you get hit, if you get broken, man, I don't know the exact damage numbers here, but I'll let the game tell the story. This is a regular Potemkin Buster on the shield at full health, right? So, hurts, but without the barrier, it gets a lot worse. So now barrier is broken, and Potemkin Buster... Yeah! So watch that mana, because you cannot afford to take that extra kind of bonus damage with the barrier gone. I do not know the exact numbers here, but that is like maybe even worse than Chip at that point, because that is absolutely insane damage. Now, as far as some of the sillier aspects of the character and all the spells and the mana and everything, thankfully they went the extra mile. So character specific settings, as always, is there. And you can change your mana settings, auto-recovering mana, which test case, which deck you're on. And you can even choose every spell slot, which spell you want to be. And there's a lot of them. So this will make life a lot easier for you in training mode. They went out of their way to just give you all the options. Thank God. As far as some of the spells go, some of the fun ones are the gravity filters. This is where he places his staff. And basically his gravity filter up, gravity filter down. So when you're shooting your projectiles, the gravity filters affect how they go. So say, gravity filter up, and now we shoot those projectiles, and you see, like, they start bouncing around like they're going crazy, versus the more normal straight angle that they would go. So now gravity filter down, much the same, just down, and it forces the projectiles to go to a much lower angle than they were before. So there's a lot of playing around with the spells and how they interact with each other. Gravity also works left and right too, not just up and down. So this one right here, if we shoot our basic shot, you see it just kind of flies around. It stays active very long. It owns a big part of the screen, so that's actually quite interesting. And conversely, on the other side here, we got a projectile that can't quite reach the enemy fully sometimes here because of the gravity kind of pulling away. So there's a lot of things to like mess with the usual just basic fighting game mindset of I'm going to shoot my fireballs, right? Going to Hadouken you till you die. So once again, as mentioned earlier, you really got to pay attention to which cards are in the deck, right? Because if you just throw this stuff out, then you're trying to throw your fireballs and you're like, how come my cube ain't hitting Potemkin? How come my move isn't going to work so good, right? This is the kind of stuff that could lose you a match if you're not paying attention to what's what. So you really gotta have the heart of the cards and make sure you know what every card in your deck. And who knows, maybe they're lucky and your deck gets stacked and then you can just do this nonsense, right? But yeah, the whole card mechanic, everything about this character, I know I keep saying it, but even if it's not the kind of character for me, because I'm straight up scared, I'm intimidated by this character. I am very glad they made something like this. Fighting games are very beautiful in that there's so many archetypes, so many styles for everyone. And it's very rare that you just see something that you've never seen before. And I ain't never seen this. I've seen like characters with like RNG mechanics before and all that kind of stuff, but not to this level, not to this depth, this craft. So if this sounds like it's up your alley, man, he's a pretty cool character and I hope you enjoy him. So that all said, those are my impressions of Asuka right now. He seems absolutely wild. And that said, I guess we're at the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some Guilty Gear.